Hey everyone, it's Suzanne, and I want to thank you for joining us for your Creative Focus podcast, where we'll be helping you create a business out of the hobby you love. You will also be able to get the show notes and the links we reference by visiting us at www.yourcreativefocus.com. Before we get going on today's podcast, if you're scratching your head thinking, what in the world is going on? I know this is Suzanne, but what is this Creative Focus mumbo jumbo? Well, I am excited to announce that we have made a few changes in our company and brand. I did have a podcast that you can listen to that explains all about the exciting direction we're going in. It's labeled A New Focus, and you will get all the nitty-gritty details in that show. Suffice to say, I have changed our name from the So Suzy podcast to the all-encompassing Your Creative Focus. I haven't gone anywhere and have no plans to hang up the mic, so no need to worry. If anything, you'll be hearing a whole heck of a lot more from me starting in June. When I first started our podcast in September of 2016, there were very few active podcasts that were directed to the crafting industry, or as it has come to be known, the creative industry. Between searching iTunes and Google, I came up with podcasts for quilters and knitters and a couple of scrapbooking shows, but the rest were lying dead along the side of the podcast pathways of life. It was sad and exciting at the same time. I didn't find a single podcast on the stamping industry that was alive and kicking, and it truly excited and petrified me. I mean, why weren't there any podcasts on stamping? And why were there not more creative podcasts out there on the airwaves? Do you crafters not like podcasts? Do you possible podcasters not think we can listen and create at the same time? Do we not drive to work? Are we not curious to hear what is going on in our beloved industry? Would I launch my podcast only to find that my mother was the only listener that I had? It's not like I'm new to podcasting. I've been doing this since 2004, but I never focused on this industry. What in the world was I getting myself into? I am happy to report that my short-lived anxiety quickly went by the wayside because we do have listeners. And there are more creative industry podcasts popping up all over the place. People just like me who want to share the stories within our ever-growing industry. And I am over the moon excited that others are joining us in podcasting. And I thought it would be great fun to have one of those ladies on our show to talk about her podcasting journey. Sally Harris hosts the 100 Creatives podcast, and it is on a journey to interview 100 creative people in 100 days. Let's face it, you guys are the best listeners ever, so how could I not share your love with other podcast hosts? Sally, thank you so much for being on our show today, and congratulations on your new podcast.
Thank you, Suzy. Thank you for having me.
Now, what made you decide to host a podcast for the 100-Day Project?
Well, I've always been a passionate listener of podcasts. I love sitting in the car on my way home. I have quite a long commute, and I started off just having one or two podcasts that I'd listen to all the time, and gradually that's kind of expanded and grown. And when I was reminded that the 100-Day Project was coming up again this year, I was feeling a bit glum because I thought, I've got nothing that I would really want to do for 100 days. I don't really know what project I should pick. But then I felt like I was going to miss out on the opportunity to get involved again this year because I didn't have something that I would want to do for 100 days. And as I was listening to another podcast that was talking about the 100-Day Project, I thought, well, I really like podcasts. Could I do a podcast for 100 days? And it's just kind of grown from there. So it started off as, maybe I'll do a podcast. And then I was like, no, I'll definitely do it if I can get 10 guests. And I emailed a whole bunch of people and I got 10 replies that said, yep, we'd be keen. And then it's kind of just grown from there, and it's turned into rather ambitiously trying to interview 100 creative folks in 100 days as part of the 100-Day Project.
And now, is this your first time producing a podcast, or have you done this before?
I have never produced a podcast before, so it's been quite a steep learning curve. We're nearly at day 50 of the project, and I've gone from never having even thought about having my own podcast before to having just interviewed my 50th guest this morning, and I've learned all of the behind the scenes things, and I've learned how to conduct an interview, and there's all of these things that I'd kind of always thought, it would be great to have a podcast, but I'll wait till I'll be really good at it before I'll start. And I don't know how I thought I was going to get better at it without having had a go. So it's been a really good kickstart for me to get me started in something that I've always been interested in.
Now, has anything surprised you during the production or the setup that you weren't prepared for? Because there's a lot.
I thought, I won't enjoy interviewing the guests so much because for those of you who are interested in Myers-Briggs, I'm an INTJ, and I really find spending heaps of time with people that I've never met before can be quite draining. So I thought, well, the interviews are going to be hard for me, but all of the behind the scenes work, like getting my website up and running and editing and all of the technical things, I'll really enjoy that. And what I found actually is it's actually the other way around. I've talked to 50 strangers at this point, and I've really enjoyed those conversations. And what's taken me much longer is behind the scenes, doing all the editing and sort of the post-production work to get the episodes ready to go up live on iTunes 5 days a week.
You interview people from all over the world. I had listened to a couple of your podcasts, and you had interviewed someone, there in Australia, and then another one over in England. And do you find that most of the interviews that you are conducting, are they strictly in Australia? Are they all over the world? Is there some place that is like crazy that you didn't expect to have an interview from that particular country? Or is it just pretty much your fan base from Instagram?
Well, when I started the Instagram account for 100 Creatives, I started from 0 on the 4th of April, and we're now up to just short of 500 followers, which has been really good. But what I've really enjoyed is I've got to speak to people from almost every continent in the world so far. So I've had a guest from South Africa. I've had a guest from Argentina. I've had guests from like Norway, Finland, almost everywhere. I need a guest from the Asia region. So if anyone's listening and you're doing the project somewhere in Asia, that would be amazing. A lot of guests from the US, which has actually worked out quite well because it means that I've been able to conduct the interviews when it's nighttime for me and morning for them, or vice versa. So it hasn't gotten in the way of having to go to work and things during the day too much.
If you could have one ultimate fangirl moment guest, who would it be on your show?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you asked this, because when I've been asking guests to go on the show, the whole time I've had one person say no. And they said, no, I'm too busy, I couldn't do it. And since then, every single other person I've asked has said yes. And so I started actually kind of dreaming a bit bigger for the show, because at first I was like, well, these people might say yes, these people might not, I don't know. And so it's been really interesting. But this morning I spoke with Elise Blaha-Kripe of the Elise Gets Crafty podcast. I know she has her own blog, and she runs Get to Work book that some of you might be familiar with. And she was someone that I thought, yeah, she would be like pie in the sky, fantastic to chat with. And now I've like chatted with her this morning, so I'm going to have to expand my thinking even more and try and find even bigger and better guests. But that was a really exciting moment for me, because I'd been following along with her blog for a number of years and have enjoyed watching her launch the Get to Work book brand. So that was really exciting to do that this morning. Worth getting up early for.
And that's just it. When we're trying to find guests, for our shows, I know when I first started doing it, because when I first started the podcast, I didn't have guests. It was just pretty much me rambling. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, oh, okay, well, I'm going to Creativation, and there's going to be a whole bunch of people there. And I thought, maybe I'm just going to email and see if maybe somebody wants to do a podcast, there at the show, since we're all going to be there, because I was afraid to do it over the computer, because I had done one and it turned out wretched. Oh. And so I was petrified. And so I thought, you know what? I know Effie from the Ton, so I'm just going to ask her, because I know she's going to say yes. Mm-hmm. And so that made it really nice. And then I had the same thing as you. It's like I asked someone and they were just like, nope, too busy, just not going to have time for this. But the more I've asked, it's just like you. It's like, you know what? I think I'm going to go ask this person. It's like one of my big one was Elise Keegan from Kit and Clowder. And I was like, there is no way she's going to say yes. Yeah. And so I sent the email, and I was like closing my eyes like, okay, I'm done. And it was like 5 minutes later. I mean, thankfully I did it in the evening over here in the U.S. Yeah. She's over there in Australia. And I got an email back. And she was like, I would love to do this. This was so exciting. And I was like, no way.
Yeah.
It was so exciting just to get those, yes, I'd love to be on your show kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And the more you ask, the more you find people that are interested in doing the same kind of creative things. And I've been really fortunate with the 100-day project because it is such a time limited thing and it does have a really big community on Instagram. And so there's a lot of people who are following people doing great work every day. And I get a lot of recommendations of, oh, can you talk to this person? Oh, can you try this person? We'd love to hear from this person. And so I've been able to reach out to a lot of guests that way. And that's been really helpful to be able to say, such and such recommended you. Can you come and talk on the show? So it's been really good.
What exactly is, because we didn't really touch on this in the podcast, and someone who maybe doesn't know, what is the 100-day project? What does that encompass?
Yeah. So the 100-day project was originally put together by a teacher at the Yale School of Art who wanted his students to work on a creative project every day for 100 days. And so to find some kind of creative action, whether it's taking a photo or painting a picture or stamping out a design, and doing that every day for 100 days in order to track their progress. And then at the end of the 100 days, they would share what they'd learned from that. And then an Instagram user called L Luna took this idea and introduced it to Instagram. And it's become a really big movement now that every year for 100 days, a whole community of creative folks get together and do something for 100 days. So I've interviewed a whole stack of different people doing a whole stack of different things, everything from digital illustration to stitching to spray painting objects gold to making French flashcards, time-lapse illustration, journaling questions about themselves, taking photos of trees, collecting color, making jewelry. You're really not limited at all by what you choose, but it's choosing something that you can do every day for 100 days and documenting that.
Once this 100-day project is finished, what happens with 100 creatives? Are you going to continue on with your podcast? Is this going to be over in 100 days? What do you think you're going to end up doing?
Well, that's a great question. I think at this stage, the plan is to continue the podcast and do like 100 more creatives. But I think I'll probably do it at a less hectic pace because at the moment, in order to try and get 100 interviews done, I'm interviewing, 10 to 12 people a week. Sometimes I do, 10 interviews just on the weekend. And it's really time consuming to talk to all those people and coordinate all of the behind the scenes of this person wants an interview at this time. Oh, can we push it back an hour? This person hasn't received the information about what we're going to talk about, and all of that administrative work behind the scenes of the podcast takes a lot of time. And so I've just reached 50 guests at this point, and I'm toying with the idea of splitting it into 2 seasons because I'm only airing 5 shows a week and having the second season at a less hectic pace so that I'm able to continue doing it, because I am really enjoying it and I'm enjoying getting to talk to so many different people, and I can't see that will change at the end of the 100 days. So that's the plan at this stage, but it evolves day after day. Some days I do lots of interviews and I'm worn out from it, and other days I think, I could do this forever. So we'll see.
Now, as a fun end to our show, we do a little fun fact segment where we find out what some of your favorites are. Mm-hmm. So far, out of the 50 people that you've interviewed, who has been your favorite guest?
It's like asking someone to choose between their children, I think, that one. I've got a handful, actually, that I went through and looked at my list, and I've picked some out that I was like, yeah, that was a really fantastic interview. And some of them are fantastic interviews for different reasons. So sometimes I start talking to this guest I've never talked to before, and we have really good creative chemistry and we have a really good chat. And so some of them are like that. Some of them are just really interesting people. And some of them I was like, oh, this is interesting for a variety of reasons. So a couple of episodes that people might be interested in if they haven't listened to the show before. Episode 10 is with Augusta of Felt Happens, and she's making 100 felt ampersands for the project. She's doing them in all different designs and ones that look like different characters and things like that. So that's really cool. Episode 30 and 31 that haven't aired yet
but they're coming up in the next 2 weeks. 30 is Mary Purdy, and episode 31 is actually her husband. So we have a husband and wife team who are both doing the 100J project, which is really interesting to talk to them. Episode 16 was Jen Blanco, and she's doing 100 golden moments. So she's choosing items that are important to her or from her childhood, and she's spray painting them gold. And so her Instagram feed is definitely one that's worth looking at. And then, episode 25, which is also coming up in the next few days, is Crystal Moody. And Crystal is really well known online for doing a year of creative habits. So 100 days is almost nothing to her when she's been used to doing projects that go for a whole year. For the last, I think, about 3 years, she's been working on them. So there's some really fascinating guests in there. And that's just a handful of the many, many people I've talked to. So if you're looking for an episode to check out, definitely start with one of those ones.
And then what is your favorite podcast that you listen to? Because you said you listened to some podcasts before you got started with yours.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I love podcasts. And that's been something funny with the show is that since I've been working on my podcast, I've actually had less time to listen to the podcasts that I really like. So because I can't edit my podcast and listen to other ones. So I've got a bit of a backlog happening at the moment. But some of the ones I'm really enjoying currently are the Happier podcast with Gretchen Rubin. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's so good. She co-hosts it with her sister. And they talk about all different happiness hacks and advice for how to live a happier life, because all of her research has been in the field of happiness, which is really interesting. I've been enjoying Chris Guillebeau's Side Hustle School, and he does about a 10-minute episode every day of the year. He started on the 1st of January, and he's looking at people who are making an income from something that they do on the side compared to their normal job, which is kind of interesting as well. Young House Love has a podcast. It's a really fun podcast hosted by a husband and wife team as well, who used to blog really regularly about their house renovations, and they quit blogging about 2 years ago, but they've brought in a podcast now, which is really fun because they're quite funny to listen to chatting. The Sax and Sax Sorta Awesome is one more that I'll name. It's a really fantastic show with a team of one main host and then 3 co-hosts, and they talk about everything from adoption to religion to the best lipstick to buy to a whole range of topics. And they're really, really quite fun as well. And they have a fantastic active Facebook community as well, which is great. If you're looking for a birthday gift for your mother-in-law, you can ask someone on there what's a good thing to get delivered, and you'll get 20 different answers back of all good ideas. So that would just be the tip of the iceberg of some of the ones I'd recommend.
What is your favorite part of producing your own show?
Oh, it has to be the community, I think. I love talking to all different creative folks, but then I love following along with everyone on Instagram and seeing it's such an encouraging place for the 100-Day Project, and I'm really enjoying being such a big part of that this year. So I'm really enjoying the community that comes along with producing your own show and hearing people's feedback and seeing people sharing their episodes with their followers and getting positive feedback on their little snapshot of what goes on behind the scenes. So that's definitely my favorite part.
Sally, where can people go to learn more about you, your podcast, to be a guest, and donate to your caffeinated cause? Because that was hysterical on your website.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely running on coffee for this podcast for sure. I'm trying to do 100 interviews in 100 days is not for the faint of heart, but everyone can learn more about my work and the 100-Day Project and everything like that by going to 100creatives.com. That's 100 in numbers and then creatives.com. And there's also, you can follow along with the fun on Instagram. So I'm at 100.creatives. And if you head to either one of those places, you'll see some of the guests we've had, some of the guests that are coming up, all of the things that are going on with the project. And if you're interested in learning more about the 100-Day Project, just jump on Instagram and look up the hashtag the 100-Day Project. And there's over 500,000 pictures there that are tagged with the 100-Day Project hashtag, and it's such a big variety, so many interesting things. And there's thousands and thousands of new pieces of work being added every day. So it's really fantastic.
Sally, thank you so much for being on our show today and sharing with us your podcasting journey. We will have links to 100 Creatives Podcast in our show notes, and you can find them at yourcreativefocus.com. Until next time, this is Suzanne, and you have been listening to Your Creative Focus Podcast. Happy stamping!